thank you for your video response, and let me try to clear a few things up. First of all, how can we find a common ground with fanatics whose only common ground is Sharia law and a global Islamic empire? My friend, there is no compromise with these individuals. The only true way to combat this threat of Islamofascism is to try to contain it. And I agree with you completely. Our current administration has done a mediocre job in classifying threats as direct and indirect. Because what I'm suggesting is we try to contain this threat by taking out its leadership. And that is the problem I have with Ron Paul. I don't see Ron Paul as the kind of president or the kind of potential president who is willing to go out, meaning he would be willing to go out to a foreign nation and assassinate or neutralize a terrorist threat. Because what I'm seeing from Ron Paul is Ron Paul would not willingly go out and assassinate an Osama bin Laden type character before he attacks us. And that's what worries me, my friend. And now, for communism, my friend, how can you say that? I understand that communism still exists, but so does Nazi-type fascism. But the thing about communism and fascism is they no longer possess the threat that they used to possess when Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union were still in existence. And if you look at some of the countries you have identified as being communist, you can clearly see that many are not communist per se. They are more of a totalitarian regime with a semi-free market system. Look at China, for instance. No way in hell is China a communist country. It's a totalitarian dictatorship with a semi-free market system. Now, as for terrorism, my friend, you are right. Terrorism has existed throughout our existence. And when I say terrorism, I'm not referring to the broad definition of terrorism or terrorist, because terrorism and terrorist is not isolated to a certain group of individuals. It's subjective morality, and every person sees a terrorist in a different way, in a different manner, in all these different ways. Because to us, someone who is blowing themselves up and killing innocent people and calling for Sharia law and are willing to die for this repressive type political or religious system, I should say, to us, they are terrorists who are willing to kill innocent people. While to them, we are terrorists because we are going out and supposedly killing innocent Iraqis and whatever. To them, we are terrorists. To us, they are terrorists. So, my point is, we will never defeat terrorism as a definition. But we can and will defeat Islamofascism and their type of terrorism. Now, as to what helps spread this idea of radical Islam, well, the primary recruitment tool is not our interventionism. It's religion. You see, this radical idea, this radical philosophy of radical Islam is associated with religion, the Islamic faith to be specific. Thus, many of these vast terrorist organizations use the Quran and Allah to justify these brutal actions. And when one says to a true follower that, well, if you do this and that you are doing God's will, and that God wants you to bring upon an Islamic empire, that it is God's will that this whole infidelic world transform itself into this holy Islamic empire. If one tells you this, and you are a true faithful, someone who has been brought up with this mindset since you were young, that's by far the easiest way to recruit an individuals, by using God and the teachings of a specific religion. And this is not only isolated to Islam. Many religions have been using this throughout history. You linked some pictures of Muhammad, and then you said something like, well, if I had portrayed Jesus in this way, then I would be receiving death threats too. My friend, have you ever watched South Park? South Park, yes, South Park. South Park is the greatest cartoon ever made, and it's extremely funny. But South Park did something unethical. Well, to the Christians, that is. They killed Jesus. South Park killed Jesus. They almost killed Santa Claus too, but they decided to kill Jesus. And not to mention, they portrayed Jesus as an idiotic fool. My friend, I'm not seeing any death threats. I'm not witnessing or seeing on television any violent protests where Christians are going out and burning American embassies because South Park had decided to portray Jesus as an idiot and then kill him. I'm not seeing it. But your, well, not so radical friends are going out and burning Danish embassies and any other embassy that had reprinted, or any other country's embassy that had reprinted the cartoons of Muhammad. And then they issued death threats. They are attacking freedom of speech. And if you're such a huge Ron Paul supporter who is for free speech, and you guys always preach about freedom of speech, we need freedom of speech. These people are attacking the basic principle of democracy, which is freedom of speech. People are scared to draw Muhammad. If that is not attacking freedom of speech, I don't know what is. So if you're such a huge supporter of civil liberties, you would be freaking outraged. You would not be defending such actions,